You're likely not surprised if I tell you that Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is home to thousands of artifacts pertaining to the American Civil War. Most of the general public that visit the hallowed grounds in Adams County will see the relics on display at the Gettysburg Museum of the American Civil War, located within the National Military Parks Visitor Center. On this edition of Artifact Highlights, I hope to shed light on the history of just a few of these historic items. The war commenced in April of 1861 with the bombardment of Fort Sumter, whose flagpole was trimmed down after the war into canes such as this one. The 5th Pennsylvania Reserve, alternatively marked the 34th Pennsylvania, were recruited out of counties including Huntington, Lycoming, and Northumberland in the spring of 1861. Men including the Zettmeyer brothers likely saw combat during the 7 days on the summer of 1862. Major Frank Zettmeyer was wounded and captured by the Confederates at Fredericksburg, dying December 31st, 1862. This belt was on him at Fredericksburg. Both this sword within the scabbard and the wool kepi belonged to General George Meade, the commanding official of the Army of the Potomac at Gettysburg. Inside this glass case is the field equipment of Robert E. Lee, General of the Army of Northern Virginia. The cot, stove, medical chest, and desk all accompanied him during the Confederate invasion of Pennsylvania in the summer of 1863. It is claimed that General Reynolds, commander of the Union's 1st Corps, laid across these chairs for a brief rest at the Moritz Tavern the night of June 30th. The following day, he'd be killed at Gettysburg. This flag belonged to the 56th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry to replace an earlier one captured at 1st Manassas. It was with the regiment in fierce fighting at Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, whose honors were being emblazoned on the banner in Philadelphia while the regiment fought at Gettysburg. This haversack belonged to Private Bernard Hack of the 75th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry. Hack took the time to inscribe the names of battles he fought in throughout the war. Interestingly, he lists battles from both the Eastern and Western Theater, where the 11th Corps were sent to Chattanooga, Tennessee in the fall of 1863. This pocket diary belonged to a member of the 12th Illinois Cavalry, which were attached to Buford's Cavalry Division and fought a delay in action north of Gettysburg July 1st. The private would die from the wounds he received that morning. This powder horn is linked to a popular tale from the first days of fighting at Gettysburg, that of John Burns. Claiming to be a veteran of the War of 1812, the 77-year-old resident joined the Union line of battle to defend his home. The museum has several portraits of Mr. Burns on display. This roster and wallet were found, among other personal effects, on the body of the 82nd New York Sergeant James Irwin. He was killed near the Cadore farm on July 2nd. Often soldiers scavenged the debris of the battle for goods. As such, this copy of the New Testament possesses 2 inscriptions of ownership. This original owner lost it on Culp's Hill, located by a member of the 132nd New York State Volunteers, who carried it for the remainder of the war. This stretcher is claimed to be used during the Battle of Chancellorsville to evacuate the wounded Stonewall Jackson. The table below was the one the general would have his arm amputated upon. These are the accoutrements of Sergeant Michael Miller of the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves that fought near Devil's Den on July 2nd. He was a resident of Gettysburg. This Bible was owned by John Cassidy of the 69th Pennsylvania. They faced off against the brunt of Pickett's charge. The bullet that tore the corner of the Bible would claim his life. These wooden joists were all pierced by the same round of artillery that smashed into a farmhouse north of Gettysburg. When the fighting was over, this kitchen table belonging to the Whitekirk family became an operating table for Union surgeons. Some Confederate prisoners from the battle would find themselves at Elmira Prison in New York, where the spoon was fashioned out of wood. Nearly 2 years after Gettysburg, the surrender of Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia would be communicated to Washington, D.C. using this telegraph. These were just a sample of the scores of relics on display at the Visitor Center for the Gettysburg National Military Park. If you enjoyed this artifact highlight, hit the thumbs up icon below. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to Redoubt Productions. If you want to go the extra mile in supporting me, a link to my Ko-fi page is in the description. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.